Hey everybody, it's Francis here. So you may notice that I am doing this without video at the moment. There are a couple reasons for that. One of them is that it is a bajillion degrees in St. Louis right now, and because my house is nice and cool on the inside, but the pod shack is not and is in kind of direct sunlight, it gets ungodly hot inside of there. I have a portable air conditioner that I have to have it blowing directly on me from underneath the desk for it to make any kind of difference when I stand up and move around anywhere else. It's unbearable. Having one person in there who's talking, two computers, four monitors, all that good stuff. Sometimes the dog comes in with me. She's 100 pounds, so there's a certain amount that I can tolerate there. Secondly, my wife and child are out of town this weekend. They went on vacation, and it is kind of a vacation for myself as well. So I'm inside. I am not in my normal place, and I am my whole schedule is kind of thrown off just because I don't have, for 4 days. If you're a parent, you'll understand. Like when for 4 days your life does not revolve around a wife and a child. Suddenly you kind of find like, well, what do I do with all this free time that's on my hands? Apparently, I podcast. I have been watching a lot of reruns of Community. Basically, I'm discovering that I am pretty much a husk of a person without my family, which I could have probably told you that in general. I not a whole lot to do if I don't have my two ladies that I take care of on a regular basis. What ends up happening is I smoke weed and I drink beer and I play Xbox and I revert back to 25 years old. But I'm 40 and I cannot do that. My liver and cholesterol and just body in general does not appreciate doing things like that. So thankfully, I only get it 4 days every 6 to 8 months or so. Gives me a little bit of time to center myself. Realize how lucky I have it, blah blah blah. All that great, wonderful dad stuff that you have come to know and love. I definitely feel that. So that's why this is going to be a little bit shorter, a little truncated, because I'm standing in my in my living room at the moment. All of my animals are sleeping around me in various places, and I am just standing, rambling into a microphone, but rambling into a microphone without having to stare at a camera this time. So, maybe it's just an extra podcast. Really, I think that what this comes down to is I just want to do more podcasts of some kind, and that is kind of what this has been turning into. So we will kind of go through our the same format that we've been going. It's just you're going to see some still images. If you really want to look at me, you can look at the videos from last week. I promise I have not changed physically that much in a week, but this is just a lot easier for me, a lot easier to kind of maintain and deal with because I'm in the house. It's still it is like 8:30 at night. It's still ungodly hot outside. So thank you for global warming and all that. I cannot work in my pod shack during various times. When it's cold though, I love it. I got a space heater. I can toast the whole place up. It's great. Originally, the pod shack is not quite a year old. I think October is when it's going to be fully a year old. So I had not gone through a summer until now through the pod shack, which is my, like I said, a detached shed that I have finished off on the inside and ran electrical to and did insulation and all kinds of stuff, drywall, all that good stuff on the inside. It is a sweat box when it comes to summer months. And I have somebody who I actually might be recording with locally. She is a friend of my wife's, and she used to run a bar called the High Point in St. Louis, and she has got all kinds of stories. I love stories from the older people who ran bars, especially in St. Louis or any major city. Like I would listen to anybody who owned a dive bar somewhere in a city and listen to them tell stories. So hopefully she's going to be coming on. We're gonna get a chance to get her on. Again, the problem is do I put her in the pod shack and do we both just melt after about 35 minutes or so? So we'll see. Hopefully everything will not be hellish at that point. So enough with that. Let's go ahead and get on with the news. So my first news item is out of Russia from Moscow with love. Not about the Ukraine war though. This is about the Luna 25, a spacecraft that Russia launched towards the moon, trying to get it to land on the South Pole. Apparently, nobody has been no country has landed anything on the South Pole. Scientists think that there might be important minerals and whatnots there. And in true Russian form, it spun out of control and fucking slammed into the surface, and nobody learns anything. Space is hard. Like I'm not gonna sit here and make fun of the Russians as if I could do this, because I certainly couldn't. Like I could get like a model rocket up in the air, but that's about the best that I'm gonna do. So certainly getting something to the moon, I certainly couldn't do that. However, at the same time, I would say that you guys are kind of in the middle of something. It's called this unnecessary war in Ukraine. You probably should stop that before you continue to try to do space exploration, I assume. But at least this does, it made me worry a little bit, because we have, a lot of our astronauts go up in Soyuz capsules to the International Space Station. They have to go up with the Russian stuff. But Russia getting up into the air has never been a problem. It's Russia coming back down that seems to be the issue here. Very fast, uncontrollably, and slamming into the moon. Now, I believe China a few years back did kind of the same thing, but they were slamming into the moon on purpose. Like, there was a, let's hit the moon as hard as we can, we'll get burrowed down deep, and we'll be able to get some information that way. Kind of a scientific bunker buster bomb, if you want to think of it in the most insane way possible. That's what China did. They said, no, we're going to crash it into it. Russia just happened to crash it into it. Very reminiscent of the most recent one of the most recent SpaceX launches, where the SpaceX went up in the air, destroyed half of its own engines because there was no flame diverters underneath it, and then blew up over a wide span of the state, and then people just got scattered with it, and nobody is going to be held accountable for it. The same kind of thing. So it's easy to make fun of Russia for something like this, but let's not pretend as if United States doesn't have its own interplanetary dipshits that we're letting do all kinds of insane and stupid stuff, and letting them get away with it. To be perfectly honest, it's like, yeah, you can blow shit up all over our stuff. We don't care. It's fine. You're Elon Musk. It's you're destroying Twitter. You might as well go ahead and destroy the atmosphere as much as possible as well. So Russia, thanks for trying. It was I don't know if it was like I said, you got it up there and you got it to there. You're doing better than I could. But also, I have never invaded another sovereign country and claimed that it was mine. So I think that's kind of a wash there. We're both 1-1. Okay, so next up is something from military.com. Steve Bainan. Friend of the show, been on a few times. I might have to bring him on for this one, because we've talked about things like this before. So the headline for this is Pentagon set to allow calculator use on military entrance exam as recruiting slumps. So if you have not been paying attention, and why would you? I mean, you're not a military recruiter. Why would you give a shit? But there has been a pretty big challenge with recruiting people to join the military, because it sucks and nobody wants to do it, and everybody who's in it hates it. In one form or another. Even if you love it, even if you're one of those people listening like, no, I love this shit, there's some shit that you hate. Probably it's being away from your family. And if you don't hate that, it's because you hate your family, and that's because you hate yourself. And that's a whole, we don't have a whole lot of time to unpack all of that nonsense. But so the ASVAB, if you are not familiar with it, the Armed Services Vocational Aptitude Battery, this is the test that you have to take to join the military. It is the test to make sure, are you smart enough to do the job that you are needing to do? You would think, why do you need to be smart to do any job in the military? Aren't you all a bunch of brain-dead dipshits? Yes, but you have to have some kind of aptitude to be able to actually do any of the jobs that we do. I worked in public affairs. I have to know how to write, I have to be able to do, and it was a hard, you do have to get a certain grade on the ASVAB, and then the GT score. I can't remember what that sounds like. The ASVAB is broken down to all these other things, and it was 20 plus years ago, so I have absolutely no idea how I really scored on all of that. I scored well enough to be public affairs. What I was told is I got an 84 on the ASVAB. So take that, 84 out of I think it's 99. So plenty of people that are smarter than me in the Army, but a lot more that aren't. But also, what is intelligence? If I'm going to be out on a battlefield, I'm going to listen to the dumb sergeant who maybe scored a 35, but he knows what the fuck he's doing with troop movements, than my public affairs ass. So, I don't put a whole lot towards what is or isn't intelligence when it comes to the military. There is no such thing as unskilled labor, and that includes, soldiers digging ditches and peeling potatoes or whatever. So this is kind of this is interesting. I'm trying really hard not to do the old man yells at cloud back in my day thing, because back in my day the teachers always told us, like, well, why can't we use a calculator? You're not going to walk around with a calculator in your pocket, are you? Well, fucking yes I am, Miss Struble. So now what? I do have a calculator in my pocket, and I have always long been a fan of using tools. I'm okay at math, but I've never been a quick math person. Like, my father, who was an engineer, tried to drill the times tables into my head, and some of it stuck, but some of it didn't. Like, I cannot, like, automatically pull up, if you give me 7 times 6 is the 42. See, I can get there, but I don't have it memorized. My father, for some reason, thought that it was very important that I have my multiplication tables memorized. Have never needed them since, and have never, and the thing is that it's the memorization. Like I said, I can get there. I just have to break it down. As it turns out, as I've been doing homeschooling with my daughter, I have discovered that what I needed was the math they're teaching now, which is, okay, let's take this complicated thing and break it into a couple of different problems that are easy to do in your head. Like 7 times 6. I know 7 times 5 is 35, and I know 35 plus 7 is 42. See, I gotta do those things. I gotta have my step in my step. So, if you're old like me and have been crying about Common Core math, it's not hard. It actually makes things make a lot more sense. So, highly recommend it. But because, again, back to the article though, because there have been so many problems with recruiting, they're trying to. They're trying to give all these, like, oh look, we'll give you It used to be bonuses. They used to just give us money. I don't know if they're still doing that, but it's hard to convince Gen Z, who literally knows no time that wasn't at war in Afghanistan until we pulled out a couple years ago. They don't know any life other than war. So why would they want to join the organization that did that? It's. For those of you who are younger, there was a time before 9/11. I remember it. It was I remember being able to if you were seeing somebody off at the airport, you could go to the gate where they were leaving. You didn't have to have a ticket to get past security. You just walk through a metal detector and you were fine. And now we got to worry about shoe bombers and Al Qaeda or something. I don't know. Sorry, tangent divergence there. I support this. I support giving calculators to everybody to do their tests and whatnot. If I remember, there was some algebra and things like that. But if you know how to plug the formula into a machine to get the output, I feel like that's fine. Like, the military has always been, and been a while since I've really been in the Army. Like, I haven't deployed in over 10 years, and that was the last time I did any kind of active duty. But there's always been a real push for things like land navigation, to be able to use a compass and a map. Like, I swear to God, I swear to God, there's got to be something about soldiers will love to tell you about, like, how you're not a real soldier unless you do X, Y, and Z. But I swear to God, the apex thing, the S tier, the top thing that makes you a good soldier is not like the things that you do for your fellow soldiers. It's not your leadership. It's not how many bad guys you kill. It's, can you fucking land nav? And the answer is no for most of us. Even if you gave me a land nav course, I could do it, and I could do it for like a week, and then I would forget it, because you would say, okay, that's enough land navigation. You don't have to do that anymore. As it turns out, compasses and maps are very complicated and difficult. and it requires a level of intelligence to be able to do. So, again, big fan of technology. I know that there are some people who would say, well, what if the technology's not there? What if there's an EMP and your calculator's fried? Well, I'm dead from a nuclear blast if there's an EMP, but also fuck off. Like, I fought a war recently. It was it was very online. Our wars were very online, and also watching everything in Ukraine and Russia, they're also very online. Like, they got smartphones. They can punch things into calculators. They have the machines to do the things that they need. Like, if you are the army that's having to get a protractor and a compass and a land navigation, and you're the ones who's going to lose. Like, because the other guy's got a GPS that's honing in on your butthole. So, well, it's great things to learn, and I do still highly, I'm not saying stop teaching land nav, because lost lieutenants are a rite of passage for officers to get lost and have heat stroke in the middle of Fort Bliss, Texas, or something like that. I will say though, calculators, yes, thumbs up. More calculators, more technology that we can to do these things. Fuck it, start putting microchips in their brains. I don't give a shit. I'm not in anymore. I don't have to be the experimental monkey. You already gave me the anthrax vaccination, and it didn't kill me. So. Good luck for you on anything else, I guess, going forward. So if you have been worried about joining the military because you just don't know your times tables, or you think you might need to plug something in an algebraic equation, or you think there might be sine and cosine on the ASVAB, which I don't believe there is, but again, 20 plus years, it's been a minute. I really wonder if I would score better on the ASVAB now. Probably not. It's a lot of high school stuff, a lot of... and I remember like automotive questions too that I did not know the answers to. Was not a car guy until the thing is, I didn't start getting into cars till I was 19, so I should have gone back and retaken it. Not that it would have gotten me a better job. I loved what I did, but it's always nice to have the better bragging rights. All right, and finally, for this week, it is Technical of the Week. This one comes out of Nigeria, the technical trike. A tricycle motorcycle that obviously it's like one of those ones that has the trailers on the back, but they just kind of added some more sheet metal and threw a dude in the back with a machine gun. Not even really a heavy machine gun either. I'm only seeing the barrels, but it's a small barrel, so it's a pretty light machine gun. Absolutely no armor, nothing to protect the driver, absolutely nothing to protect the gunner. I don't know what they think those sheets of metal are going to do. They painted it camouflage, so that at least gives you, much like how when you draw flames on the side of a car, it makes it go faster. When you put camouflage on something, it can stop at least a 9mm bullet. So, hopefully these guys are going to make it through. The question about is this, like, because I was wondering, this is the Nigerian military, so is this something that has been repurposed that was built for civilian use? I believe so. Just because you can see that it's obviously a trailer. It's got the trailer sides that they painted and then put this little box on the inside as well. So great usage of what you've got. Feel real sorry for anybody who's got a bee in it though, driver or gunner. There is no protection. Like, a single AK bullet is taking out the both of you. So hopefully your gunner can lay down some really good suppressive fire while you're driving, because absolutely nothing in front of you, driver, is going to stop that round coming through and then pitching your guy over. I also, for those of you who were never in, when you would be in a Humvee and you were the turret gunner, you're the guy up top with the gun, at least later on, early in the war, you didn't have to do this. One of those lessons learned kinds of things. But they started like attaching, like there was a harness that you had to wear while you were the gunner, and then somebody inside would attach you. Basically, today we're going to be reading from The Broken Arrow. This was put out at Shelfridge Air Force Base. Shelfridge does still exist. Currently it's an Air National Guard location in Michigan near Harrison Township, if that means anything to you. But Air National Guard, of course, a lot of these bases during the time were much more built up because there was a bigger war going on, obviously in Vietnam, a lot of troop movements and things like that. So shelfridge at the time was probably used a lot more. This one published underground for and by GIs at Shelfridge Air Force Base, dedicated to free speech and the struggle for our rights. It is This is your personal property. It cannot legally be taken from you, which is something that they put on a lot of these because obviously people, the lifers, the regular brass wouldn't want your average soldier having a bunch of anti-war material on them, as it turns out. But legally, they couldn't take it away from you, so they have to put that on there. Like, don't let the man bring you down. All right, so let's take a look here. All right, so first we're going to start with a little bit of news. This one is called Uprisings at Fort Jackson and Fort Riley. New York, New York, July 1st. This is 1969 when this was published, so to give you the year for it. The International Office of the American Service Members Union announced that 2 more revolts have taken place in Army stockades recently on June 14th at Fort Jackson, South Carolina, and June 22nd at Fort Riley, Kansas. The uprising at Jackson was touched off by the beating of a prisoner, Julio Rivera, who had refused to pull KP. Rivera was severely beaten by 3 sergeants and had to be hospitalized. In protest, 150 prisoners gathered and requested to see the stockade commandant. The Army relented, releasing Rivera and several other prisoners from confinement. Rivera plans to bring charges against the sergeants who beat him. So just really quick, the 150 people in the stockades, along with all of these military bases, something they didn't talk about a lot, was the stockades, where people who were drafted and didn't actually want to go do the draft thing showed up to the draft board, showed up to report, and then decide that they're going to kind of push against stuff. So there's a lot of these on a lot of the big major bases. Fort Jackson and Fort Riley still both very large bases today. Fort Jackson is one of the basic training bases, and Fort Riley, Kansas is first ID, I believe. I've been there, a big flat expanse of nothing, much like most military bases, especially the ones in the Midwest. All right, so we've got the next one at the Fort Riley stockade. A guard shot a prisoner who was allegedly trying to escape. The rebellion broke out the next day when the prisoners had heard that he had died. MPs were stoned and 2 prisoners wounded when the MPs opened fire. Concerning the rebellions, Bob LeMay, a Vietnam veteran and the executive director of the American Servicemen's Union, stated, quote, "These uprisings come close on the heels of an even bigger revolt at the Fort Dick stockade, where the inmates had been driven by the brass's torture and abuse to the point where they could only rise up and fight against their oppressor. We support all rebellions of service members who are held as prisoner by the brass. All stockade prisoners should be released, and the war criminals of the Pentagon put behind bars." I'm sure that sounds very familiar to many of the posts and things that have been said about everybody from Bush Sr. And really Bush Jr. up to what we've got today. So quick little snippets there, and these things were happening all over the place. There were always uprisings. There was always people pushing back against the brass. So these are just some of those things that were talked about in the past. We've talked about explosions at Fort McCoy, which is in Wisconsin. We've talked about sabotage being done to ships in San Diego. This is kind of the same thing. A lot of people who don't want to go to war, and like this, reading all of these really sends home the whole we should not have a draft. Americans are not beaten down enough for conscription, I don't think. There's too many of us who have grown up telling the government to fuck itself that I think that it really wouldn't work going forward now. There's always some kind of push, it seems. There's always some politician somewhere who thinks, it would be great to make people more manly is to force them into the military, which is not a good place to put everybody. It's not a good place to put most people in general, especially the ones who volunteer for it. So definitely not a place to put your average draft person, or any of you. Like, I wouldn't want any of you to be drafted. It fucking sucks. Don't join the military. We constantly tell you to not join the military, especially don't allow yourself to get drafted. Okay, next up is a favorite of mine, and the reason why I picked this this newsletter to do it, because while a lot of this stuff is very important. Obviously, the anti-war sentiments and everything were very important during the time. There's also like a large amount of just kind of whining about things that, I mean, this is a real E2 response here. This is a real private being pissed off. So it's entitled, "Are We Free?" Question mark. Why should I have to live? Why should I have to keep a room on base when I live downtown? If I keep a place at my own expense, why do I need to keep a room on base? They should use that space for some lovely lifer to inhabit. Are we free? Why don't I have the right to choose for myself where I want to live, as long as I make it to work on time? I'm 21, legal to vote and drink in any state. Why can't I choose where I want to live? I'm an adult by age, but not by proximity. What kind of respect am I given by following what the establishment sets up? I also like to travel in my car. I'm sure you do too. How can we go anywhere when they put a 300-mile personal operating vehicle restriction on us? All right, first off, dude, 300 miles, go fuck yourself. 50 miles is what we got to deal with now because they trust us even less. Secondly, I can't say that I disagree. You know, sure, if you can get to work on time and you can maintain an off-post house, sure. There's a reason why they don't let every jackass just kind of do that, mostly because you guys are, like, when I say you guys, I mean 18-year-olds in the Army, are really fucking stupid. And that's not your fault. Like, you're 18 and you joined the Army. Like, how smart could you really be to begin with? Of course, you know, I can say this. I joined and stayed in for 20 fucking years. I'm dumb as hell. But the reason why you keep all of these guys, one, they're dumb. Two, they don't know what they're doing. Like, I would love to believe that every 18 to 21-year-old in the military is a fully realized adult who can take care of themselves, but I know very much that is not the case. So I love this. I love that somebody is complaining about they can only go 300 miles. Like, I live in St. Louis. The 300 miles means I could go to Chicago, I could go to Memphis, I could go to Kansas City. Maybe able to make it to Detroit in 300 miles. It's not that big. It's like kind of big, but it's not that big. And these guys, at the air base here, if this person is in the same place as this newsletter, they're in Michigan, which I understand. It's Michigan. It's the Midwest. You don't necessarily gotta love it, but 300 miles is a pretty nice chunk of space to go. So, and I don't know about this guy. Like, I don't know if he's been drafted or because it sounds like he's already in the military, gone through basic training. This is just a dude who's just kind of complaining about one of the very many annoying things, which all privates have complained about. They just don't generally put it into a anti-war zine crying about where's my freedom. So shout out to all the E2s in the world and the bullshit that they complain about. All right, and finally, the last thing, another kind of soldierly complaint, another very enlisted complaint, but I kind of understand this one a little bit more. So it starts out with, let's start this article right by saying that we have been told time and time again, underscore, the day room is coming. We in the 1st CE have been told that there's a place to shoot the shit, play pool, watch TV, etc. Yet no one has seen this place, and if we haven't seen it, then how the hell can we do these things? Now we know for a fact that the 1st CE did receive a brand new color TV, but not for our place, just to bullshit. The reason for this is that they cannot get anyone to babysit for us. I say babysit because they feel that someone is needed to watch over us 24 hours a day. But they don't do this when you're in Vietnam getting your balls shot off. Side note, you do need to be babysat, and you probably are going to get babysat in Vietnam as well. We also just had our pool table reclothed, right? But for what? The only people that get to use it is the first shirt and his array of merry ass-kissers. So I would take it that if you are not to be trusted unless some dim-witted fuckhead of the staff or above is always there to wipe your ass, or that if you're not a merry kiss-ass of the first shirt, we're not going to get a day room. First shirt is first sergeant for the Air Forcers. This has come back to a little saying called rank has its privileges. So if you are not ready to become a funky lifer, you may just as well forget to ever just as well to forget ever any nice things, and also a day room. Editor, guys, find an editor. And it ends with, unless someone finally realizes we don't need a nursemaid. You do need a nursemaid. Somebody needs to be watching you because, again, you're probably dumb. But day room's 100% a necessity. Fantastic place for everybody that can kind of gather around. The last day room that I had was when I was in annual training, so 20 years ago. And we had a nice TV, a nice big open area with lots of places to hang out. There was like a movie room, like a room that specifically had a large TV and was set aside to, close blinds and close doors, and you could watch movies in there. But we also had other TVs, you could watch sports and whatnot. And it is very important. It's a good place because, like, you got to give your troops something to do, otherwise they're going to go out and get drunk. Now, those of you who have been in the military are saying, but wait, Francis, we got drunk in our day room. Yes, correct. That also happens, but at least you're in your own areas getting drunk and you're not driving all over the fucking place. So day room's very important. It sounds like they do have a day room, but the higher ups get to have access to it before anybody else does. So kind of sucks. It sucks to live like that, but you're in the Army, man. It's gonna suck. You should have fled to Canada, like all the smart people. Go to Canada for 10 years and wait for Jimmy Carter to pardon you. So that was the Broken Arrow. Broken Arrow named after the events of losing a nuclear warhead. And I would suggest, if you've never looked up how many broken arrows America has had, don't do it, because it's frightening to find how many times we've almost accidentally nuked the shit out of ourselves. So, but Broken Arrow, the zine, we will revisit this again in the future.